Xenos Inquisitor Rex Van Horth intercepted a message on board of the Storm Eagle from an unknown Augur station. Xenos activity was discovered on the death world Malachit III, which was long abandoned by the Imperium. Van Horth knew that the planet was near regions claimed by the Tau, but they had never reached out that far into Imperial space. After calling in reinforcements from the Death Watch, he ordered a 3-week-long trip to the system, but he had no idea what expected them there. Welcome, hobby enthusiasts, to another Killteam Battlereport on this channel. I'm Benne here at Minimaltabletop, and today's veterans Tau of the Daleth Sept have to defend themselves against the real space raid by my bloodthirsty Drukhari. We played a narrative mission Cruel Intent out of the Killteam Annual 2019 on page 32. One of the two fighting factions must reach Drukhari, who is then automatically the attacker. The Tau are automatically the defender in this match. The kill team that is not broken at the end of the round wins. Alternatively, each player receives 1 victory point for each enemy model that was killed by an attack. Since the Drukhari prefer to play with their victims rather than killing them immediately to feel the sensation of their pain, only a 6+ counts when a Drukhari injures their enemies. Everything else is a flesh wound. In return, Drukhari gain +1 strength and to hit in combat when they are within 6 inches of enemy models that have a flesh wound. There are also mission-specific stratagems that may come into play during the game. Svetan and I wanted to make it a little more exciting and our kill team specialist a little more special, so before the game we rolled d6 additional experience points for each specialist and leveled them up, but without paying the additional point costs. A Tau hunting cadre, led by Shastra Sufan, was supposed to scout out Malachit III with his ghost squad. Long-range scan results have shown that the jungle resides in valuable resources, and before Earthcast engineers can set a foot on the planet, potential hazards had to be identified and eliminated. A routine mission. Due to the local conditions, which are very similar to the original habitat of the Kroot, Sufan thought it was wise to take some of their allies on the mission to make use of their keen senses and instincts. It was one of the Kroot, Kroot, who first spotted the Drukhari in the thicket before a fierce battle broke out. Cyberwitch Silas Menesh had stepped through the war portal on Malachit III countless times. When the planet was still teeming with Monkey, she loved the sensation during real space raids, enjoying their pain and suffering while she handed the captured slaves into the skilled hands of the wrecked torturers. After they gave up the planet, traces of their primitive civilization remained, in the form of massive wild boars, which in their domesticated form served as a source of food and were now at the top of the jungle's food chain. They were perfect for the arenas of Comora, especially if you let the starved beast loose on the defenseless Monkey. A beautiful irony. But this time it wasn't just the boars that were her prey. She couldn't wait to skin the Tau with her blade and feast on their pain. Before we start the first battle round, I'll start with the stratagem Adaptive Tactics to bring my Clavix veteran into charge range and hopefully get into combat on turn 1. Svetan counters with the same strat and moves his veteran ghost suit with Fusion Blaster. At the beginning of the battle round, Svetan receives a command point from his level 2 comm specialist. The initiative in round 1 could not be any clearer. At the beginning of the movement phase, I use Architect of Pain so that I can reroll my charge roll with my Clavix using the power from Pain bonus and charge the Kroot. Veteran retreats 3 inches, and now the Clavix needs 7 inches to get into close combat. A 6 is not enough, but Architect of Pain allows me to reroll. And a 9 makes it easily. I got all of my Cavaliers ready, and with the rest I moved forward pretty quickly. Svetan made 2 of his ghosts and 1 of the Kroot ready. He has built some distance with the rest. In the shooting phase I start with my Cavalier gunner and fire at Svetan's veteran. He is in half range and that means 6 shots with the splinter cannon. I only hit once, thanks to the ghost's camouflage field, but wound with the 6. The free up armor save stops the bullet. Next, the ready Kroot shoots at the wreck directly in front of him and hits once with the 6, but unfortunately doesn't wound the tough wreck. Next, the Cavalier shoots the ghost in front with his splinter rifle at long range and hits with a 6, and also wounds with a 6. However, the 5 on the save prevents the damage. Svetan uses the stratagem more bullets and shoots the wreck with 5 rounds and hits twice, but cannot wound. But he gets it with the reroll. The wreck doesn't make the 5 up invuln, but the 6 up feel no pain lets him ignore the wound. A tough guy. My leader shoots at the only target she can see at long range and misses with a 3. The Tau veteran wants to melt the wreck to slag, but fails with the 1. The witch in the middle aims her splinter pistol at the Kroot and misses with a 4, obscured and long range. The comm specialist gives the Tau leader +1 to hit with his burst cannon, with which he shoots at the witch, hits once and also wounds. The witch does not make her 6-up armor save and cannot ignore the wound. The 3 on the injury roll means a flesh wound. Now the comm specialist tries to give her the rest and misses all 4 times. And that brings us to the fight phase. The Clavix piles into the Kroot and attacks. He hits twice and wounds twice. With -3 AP the wound goes through. However, due to the mission with the 4, the Kroot only gets a flesh wound. But now the Drukhari have tasted blood. The Kroot strikes back, but misses. No nerf test required in this round in the morale phase. No command point for Svetan by his comms at the beginning of round 2, and the initiative goes back to the Drukhari. In the movement phase I ready 2 of my Cavaliers to fire and get my leader to safety before charging into combat. The wreck charges the Kroot, who is in close combat with the Clavix, and easily gets in. Then I use the mission stratagems with Torment for +2 to the charge roll on the other Kroot, whereupon Svetan retreats with his 3 inches. But he can't get away with a 14-inch attack move. The rest of my Drukhari run to the right flank for cover behind the large rock. Svetan wants to keep building distance between himself and the Drukhari as much as possible, and at the same time ensure good lines of fire on targets that can be more easily eliminated. I start the shooting phase again with the splinter cannon, this time with the Kroot as a target, and only hit once with 6 shots, and also cannot wound. Next, the Cavalier tries to hit the same target with his splinter rifle, but also misses. Freeze the charm. My leader has the same target and scores with the 6. And wounds with a 6 too. The Kroot does not make his armor save and gets a flesh wound with the 3 on the injury roll. But my leader isn't finished yet. With D3 attacks from her Phantasma Grenade Launcher, she hits once but cannot wound. Still, -1 on the morale for the Kroot this round. Next, Veteran's leader shoots the wreck with his burst cannon, but does not hit him despite his target lock system, as he is obscured. Next, the veteran with his comms fires his fusion blaster at the wreck and hits with the 5 and wounds him too. But with the 6, the wreck easily manages its 5+ in one save. The comms shoots my gunner next, hitting twice and wounding both times. The Cabalade makes a 5+ armor save, but the other wound goes through. A 3 on the injury roll is a flesh wound. The same thing with the other ghost. Again, 2 hits. And 2 wounds. But this time the armor holds with a double 6. Sweaton does not put up with that, and the Kroot aims and misses. Both times. In the fight phase, my witch fighter stabs first with her impaler and hits all 3 times. She wounds twice, and with -1 AP and 2 damage, the Kroot was impaled with the 6 on the injury roll. Ouch. The wreck strikes next and hits both times, and also wounds twice with its torture tools. The Kroot cannot make its armor save, and receives a flesh wound. And in the end the Clavix gives him the rest. The surviving Kroot passes its morale test in the morale phase. Again, no command point for Svetan. Round 3 starts again with the Drukhari having the initiative. I use Swift Torment again to get my Impaler into close combat. And Svetan retreats 3 inches with both of the charged ghosts. Four plus 2 inches are not enough. However, a total of 10 inches of charge range makes it easily enough. The witch is making Svetan's veteran sweat his pants. The wreck also manages the charge with a 7. The rest of the murderous elves, apart from the Cabalites, stormed into the middle, except for the Hackatrix, who seeks a fight with the Ghost Heavy, who in return opposes her unbendingly. Svetan circles the action in the middle as he prepares the coup de grace on the wounded Cabalite gunner, who aims ready into their direction. The tower chased across the battlefield by the Drukhari, but the patient hunter eventually catches its prey, and the tower are known for their persistent tactics. In the shooting phase, the wounded Cabalite gunner shoots at the wounded Kroot with all he's got, but due to his flesh wound he only hits his obscure target once, but cannot wound him. The other Cabalite can only see the ghost in the front, and only hits the obscure tower once at half range, because of his camouflage field, but wounds him with the 6. The ghost fails to make his armor safe and loses one of its 2 wounds. The last thing the Cyberrat tries to do is to take out the Kroot, but misses with the splinter rifle and also with the Phantasma grenade launcher. Next I'll shoot the ghost leader with the Wreck Architect and its liquefier gun. It's an automatic hit with -D3 AP. Unfortunately, it's not a wound. The heavy specialist of the tower fires from all barrels with the stratagem overwhelming firepower and is allowed to shoot twice. He hits 3 times and wounds 2 times. The Ecotrix makes an armor save, but cannot ignore the other wound and was torn to pieces in a hail of bullets with an injury roll of 5. With the second volley he aims at the wreck he can see, but misses this time. The leader shoots the same targets, hits once and wounds. The wreck does not make it safe, but can ignore the wound. The comms wants to put an end to the Cabalite gunner and hits once, but cannot wound. But Svetan repeats the roll and wounds. But the Drukhari's armor holds up. The comms then bust the other ghost, and with that he hits everything. And makes 4 wounds. The gunner makes 2 of its armor saves. But cannot ignore the remaining 2 wounds. With a 4 on the injury roll he is finally eliminated. But in the side phase the Drukhari have the opportunity to take revenge. We start with the wreck. He hits twice with powerful pain, thanks to the +1 to hit. And he wounds 1 time. The 1 is a failed armor save that Svetan rerolls into a 6. Next it is the witch's turn with her impaler. She hits twice. And also wounds twice. With AP -1 the double 4 is enough and the armor holds up. With the 6 in the morale phase the Kroot is shaken. And the comm specialist Prince Svetan no luck again. However, this time the initiative clearly goes to the tower. At the beginning of the movement phase, I first used the stratagem stim shot on the Clavix. Then I used decisive move, which Svetan tries to counter. Now we have to roll who can move 1 model first. With a 6 the Drukhari have the upper hand. And with the charge of the witch the tower veteran is stuck in mortal combat. The tower then split up a bit, always at a sufficient distance from the bloodthirsty killer elves. The Drukhari have mostly concentrated in the middle, except for the medic Ecotist, who has the heavy gunner in his sights. The heavy loses no time and shoots at the Ecotist, hits twice, and wounds with both hits. With a double 6 however the bullets ricochet off the grotesque wreck. Now he shoots back. 1 automatic hit with the liquefier gun and with a penetration of -3. But the 4 is unfortunately not enough to wound. The tower leader aims his burst cannon at the wreck and hits once. And wounds as well. The wreck fails to make it safe and cannot ignore the wound. With the 5 on the injury roll, he is history. Unfortunately, the Tau Comm specialist does not hit his obscure target over long range. The shooting phase is over, and it is time for the Drukhari to attack the Tau veteran. The wreck that charged this round attacks first. He hits 2 times, a wound. The 2 is a failed armor save that Svetan rerolls. But still doesn't make. The ghost loses 1 of its 2 wounds. Next the witch without a special weapon attacks, but no hits. Then the injured witch. 3 hits. And a wound with the 5. But the armor holds. Next up is the Clavix, who, thanks to the medic stratagem, has 5 attacks and hits with 4. He wounds 3 times, once with a 6, which means 3 damage. Svetan cannot make the save for the 3 damage, but only gets a flesh wound out of it. The battered Tau veteran tries to take out the injured witch, but cannot hit. The other wreck hits once, but cannot wound. The witch with the impaler hits twice. And wounds thanks to the special mission rule, as she has +1 strength because of the flesh wound of the Tau. Then the Shazui can make his armor save. With 2 damage and a 6 on the injury roll, the veteran was massacred. What a slaughter. The shaken Kroot makes his nerve test, and at the end of round 4 the game continues on a 5. However, again no command point for Svetan. The initiative in round 5 goes to the Drukhari. I declare a charge with the Impaler Witch onto the Tau leader, and Svetan fires Overwatch on 4+ with the baited trap. He hits twice and can wound both times. The witch neither makes an armor save, nor can she ignore the wound. But with the 2 she only suffered 1 flesh wound, and with a 6 she easily gets into close combat. The rest of the Drukhari continue to corner the Tau leader. The Cyberite gets ready and the injured witch tries to make a run for it, but the Ghost Heavy doesn't want to let her get away. The injured Kroot also runs away, but the other ghosts come to the aid of their leader. The Cyberite, ready to fire, shoots at the wounded Kroot. 2 shots with the Phantasma grenade launcher. Both missed. The Splinter Rifle does not find this target either. However, with the stratagem Fire and Fate, the cunning leader manages to get her safe out of the line of fire of the rest of the Tau. The witch throws a plasma grenade at the ghost in front of her. Only 1 shot, and unfortunately no hit. The comms buffs the ghost next to him, which is firing at the Cabalite in front of him. 2 hits. 1 wound. The Cabalite can't make its armor save, and can't ignore the wound. But with the 3 he gets away with a flesh wound. He shoots at his attacker, but misses both times. The Heavy wants to kill the injured witch with overwhelming firepower. Due to lightning fast reactions, however, he only hits on 6s. Nevertheless, he hits once, and wounds with a 6. The armor does not stop the bullet, and she can't ignore the wound. With the 4 and her flesh wound she is fatally hit. The wreck is the heavy second target and I use Hunt from the Shadows to protect him. The heavy hits his obscure target once, but cannot wound. The comms focuses fire on the same target because it's the only target he can see, but misses all of his shots. The tower heavily decimated the Drukhari at the shooting phase this round. Can the elves catch up in close combat? First up is the wreck. It hits, thanks to power from pain, and inflicts a wound. The armor won't stop the blow, one less wound. Then the injured witch stabs with the impaler. One hit, but unfortunately no wound. The Kroot manages his nerve test in the morale phase. The Cabalite makes it with a 1. And the witch does it on a 4, thanks to the wreck next to her. At the end of Battle Round 5, the Drukhari player has to roll again to see if the game continues, and with the 3 the Drukhari return to the web ray as the tower have successfully defended themselves against their ambush. Unfortunately, I just noticed in the end that I had completely forgotten about the witch's combat drugs, true to the slogan, "Say no to drugs." Anyways, the tower were just in the lead and could decide this battle for themselves. It was a super exciting game that could have gone in one direction or the other at any time, and we both had a lot of fun, and I hope you enjoyed it too. Cyberite Sheila's Menace has escaped into the webway and will haunt the tower again after her shameful defeat, because now she has gotten a taste for their blood. Please let me know in the comments if any rules were misinterpreted during the game, so that we can improve next time. So then, see you next time.